everyone, and thank you for being patient during the delay. We just, it was my fault. I was the one who was spending too much time organizing, getting her hair set for today, because I got no glasses. Yes, and we are going to have a very exciting, a very interesting presentation on today's show. Laith has agreed to take us through, well, an account he told me, and I found it so fascinating. I said, please come in on my show and relate it again. And also, it's going to be better for you guys because he has PowerPoints. He did a PowerPoint for us. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Do you want to just, introduce yourself a little bit and say what caught your interest about this topic while I reach over here and get my coffee? And hi to everybody in the chat, by the way.
First off, you got coffee. So unfair.
I am prepared.
You are prepared. Oh man, like, I'm pretty sure there might be some overflow between people. Like some of you lads. Like I was up until like 4 a.m. unable to sleep. But anyway, yeah, no. Let's talk about bit of thing. First off, I'm sort of interested in like history and just the weird shit that goes on. Like, I kind of became very interested in what was it called? There's a YouTube channel called Extra Credits who started doing something because they were paid by somebody to do like an account of the Punic War.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like that kind of like really got me into, that was the thing that kind of really got me into YouTube, basically.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like that's the thing that got me. Now talking about Danzig, talking about the concept of it, it's actually to do with something really cool that yourself and your co-host, who shall not be named.
Yes, unfortunately, Kevin took ill this morning. I don't know if it was. It was alcohol related consumption illness, or it's just like he did answer the door the other day to his neighbors, so who knows, he might have picked something up from his but we get more time with you today, so we'll make up for it that way. Yeah.
Oh no.
More talking from you.
That's gonna go wrong. That's gonna go so wrong. Anyway, yeah. So
I think
the specific thing that I really liked about that I looked up about was you guys are doing the whole racist white history month.
Oh yeah, I should get that sorted. I should pull that up. I'm so bad at this, but okay, you talk, I'll pull that up.
Yeah, but what eventually happened, I got really interested in it, and inevitably what eventually happened is that somebody was like, oh yeah, but like, you see, this is what happens when I'm sleep deprived.
It's okay.
I'm halfway through the sentence. No, I kind of like looked up what started the Second World War, not in the like, oblong sense of, oh yeah, like, the Nazis happened or anything.
Yeah.
I literally was like, what was the actual thing that started it?
Okay, what kicked it off? What were the specific? Yes, it was a powder keg waiting to go off, but what was the match? What was the? Yeah. Okay.
And this is it.
Oh, right.
Like almost like lots of people will argue about it and whatever, but the specific event that kind of like is taken as, okay, you have taken this too far, Hitler, you rapscallion fascist. And it's because they invaded, basically they invaded Poland. Yeah.
That was it, yes. And yeah, do you want to give before, let me see, I'll pull up the racist white people version that I gave Kevin. Yeah, here. Okay, let's see how, all right, hold on, pause. You won't be able to see it or hear it, but believe me when I say it is now on the screen and next to us. So let's go ahead and give this the proper introduction that it deserves. There we go. We have it. All right, our official opening for Racist White People History Month. The answer to the question, when is White History Month? All right, so yes, that is
the
set.
answer is March.
Yes, I don't know if you've got the stream on your computer or on a phone or whatever, but I do have the images, so go ahead and just tell me. Yeah, I'm going to say, take over and tell us the story of a little bit of the background too on this, because not all of us are history geeks. So for the non-history geeks in the chat.
Okay. So the first thing is, you'll see right there in front of us, there's a weird, bit grainy, probably paid by, this picture was probably paid for by the Pixel, picture of some Nazis, history's punching bag, which, good thing.
They deserve.
You can see that they're cowering, which is the way Nazis should be, behind a car. And the reason they're doing that is because of what we're going to talk about. Before we talk about it, though, I am going to kind of like put out a bit of a, I guess you could say like a content warning, which is we're going to talk about the racism that is inflicted on one group to itself from an American perspective.
Sure.
From American perspective, you've grouped all people with the same color of melanin and kind of just gone, you guys are white. And this, as a result, seems to be a non-racialized event. It's heavily racialized, and basically this is going to be about that. So basically racial violence, content warning, racial violence. But it has my favorite thing in it, which is, let's find out how to kill Nazis, which I appreciate. Okay, so next slide, please.
Yep.
Okay. So this first page. Okay, for some reason it's not. Come on, you. Open. Just being annoying right now. I'm trying to remember the first page. I'm sorry. This is
that's okay.
on.
Is there anything I can do?
No.
Okay.
This is waiting on the stream to update, but also I forgot to open my Danzig presentation.
Are
yes,
your notes
guys,
here?
I'm a nerd. I have a fucking Danzig presentation.
I was so impressed when you linked to my PowerPoint and like, oh my gosh, these are very nice. Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. But it's failing miserably. Open in browser. Let's see if that works. Access file. Danzig. Yes.
Woo-hoo.
Yes, for God's sake. Are you not going to open?
No, I mean, it's honestly, I was also running late this morning.
There we go.
Yes.
So, as you can see, we have the entirety of the city of Danzig met together in a place. They are well known for playing Bat Out of Hell and other things. No, this isn't Danzig at all. This is the band Danzig. And it would be a better joke if I actually knew what I was doing. But in any case, next, let's just go to the next slide, because we have a much more indicative image of what Danzig is.
Yes.
So let's just talk a little bit about the place itself, okay? Which is, Danzig is a port city. And it is unique in that it almost entirely did not exist before the year 1920. There was a city known as Danzig. However, it weren't really a city. It was more like a couple of settlements and communities that got kludged together into what we're going to talk about today. The only thing of real significance that happened is they willingly joined the German Empire, and that's where they got their coat of arms. And they are fucking insignificant otherwise.
Yes, it was I did see someone talk about short-lived states, and they covered this, and I tried to do some basic research for the show because I had done none, and I watched the video, and he said, this isn't really a state, it's more like a free city, or like a city that had some self-governance within Poland, yada yada yada, and it actually existed like for longer than the Nazi government. So like he's like, should I even make this a short-lived state or not? But and he talked about it insofar as it was politically very unique. It was atypical for the time in terms of it, the fact that they were citizens of the city first, although the city was located within the boundaries of Poland. Am I getting that right?
That's a very good, and honestly, that is more care than the city of Danzig really deserves, because Danzig. We'll get into it right now. Actually, we'll just do that. Next slide is an image which I feel is representative of the thing that caused Danzig to exist, which is World War One.
Okay, is that what that meant?
Yes.
As a clown. Okay.
This is some poor bastards awkwardly being forced to do something. In the case of this picture, be an orchestra. In the case of other things, in the World War One being it, die at the behest of a fucking clown. Which you can kind of I think that's an apt description. By the way, this happens to be one of the British Empire Auxiliary Corps images. Specifically from Canada.
Oh gosh, is that what? Is it Canadian?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're all a bunch of poor Mounties who have, like they're an orchestra and they all signed up together, and their conductor was forced to wear that so that he would stand out, and basically none of the people in this image are alive today because of more racism. Pretty cool. We're going to get into some pretty standard racism in a second.
Okay.
Because World War One itself doesn't matter to this story. What happens afterwards is what matters to this story. Quick pop question for the class. Does anyone know what happened in 1917?
Oh, let's see what the chat has to say. I can actually drag it out. You have to lag, though. It's going to lag for a little bit. So you might have to...
It shall be fine.
Okay. All right. By the way, while you guys are coming up with your answers to the question, what happened in 1917, I also notice that this... I want my really comfy blanket.
You need to wrap up warm. You might actually wind up falling asleep before I do.
No.
Because this is simultaneously really fun, but really dumb.
It's very cool. A to Decay. Hello, Money Louie. Hello, Le Cigar. Hello, DNF fan, Trans Gamer Girl, El Magnifico. Who else? Po Mama said. No, not swine flu. Po Mama said. I don't eat hot dogs. I devour them. Not the right answer of what happened in 1917.
Although hot dogs, they are something that people. Jimi Hendrix, yes, Jimi Hendrix happened in 1917. It was a well-known event. He just ripped the shit out of everything. Spanish flu. Yeah, man. Lucky Wanderer. Ah, man. Yep.
The Austrian
Emperor, whole bunch of things. Austrian Emperor died. Okay, so you're all correct, but in the wrong. Classical way that all bad PowerPoint presentations have got to be, you're all also fucking wrong. So next slide, please, because what we actually want was the Council of Versailles.
Well, of course.
What a look of old fucks they are. Look at them. Look at how old, fucking miserable they are. Yeah. Just to let you guys know, just to kind of like give you an idea of everything that's happening right at this moment, everybody on the right is irrelevant. Everybody on the left is members of like the German and Russian bunch of people, and everybody in the middle is a racist caricature. If the person who will not be named was here, he would talk about the fact of how awesome people's noses are because they've got moustaches, and that guy over there's got a lovely beard. However, I refuse to accept anything about any of these things. These are all horrible imperialist bastards. Fuck them all.
Yeah.
The guy in the middle there is actually going to be the real big thing. The guy who's like bent over looking at this book. Yep, right in the middle.
Yeah, this guy, he's looking kind of Nazi-ish, if I'm honest. He looks like a bit of a fash. But anyway, yes. So
okay, so that happens to be the Prime Minister of the UK at the time.
Oh,
So
Is that
he was
Chamberlain?
actually a fucking Nazi. He hated
Okay.
everybody, really. And he built up the concept of what is now recognized as being, like, statistically the most ineffective and useless piece of shit in the world, the League of Nations.
Ah, yes.
Um, so just for the sake of people who want to kind of like get an idea of it, who the fuck is the League of Nations? Do you know when people talk about how the UN is going to cause the literal end of the world,
Yeah.
like the
The
American
New
crazy
World Order people?
Yeah, yeah. The League of Nations was literally an attempt to do that. And in fact, a reason why people think that way.
Mm.
Like, I'm not going to, like, you do not have to hand it to the fucking crazy conspiracy theorists. However, it was explicitly said that this kind of thing was going to be a work towards a new world order of one world government.
Oh, right, okay. Yes, and then they realize, oh, wait, fuck, we can't even organize a single country's government. How is it even going to be possible to do a one world government? This is a futile exercise. Let's just do international cooperation.
So their explicit level of, I'm not going to push back on that at all. I'm just going to move on. So the explicit goal of the League of Nations is specifically to ensure that there is like a circumstance where, like, explicitly they were designed to kind of just make sure there isn't another war, because wars, they're kind of cringe, don't you think? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, they
costly
are kind
and bloody and terrible.
and cringe, very cringe. But in any case, they decided, okay, how are we going to achieve this? We're going to achieve it by wrecking the shit out of everybody on the left side of this picture. Let's just fuck with Germany, like one of the most militaristic and cruel like groups amongst everybody, amongst all the groups of the racists. Let's force them to pay for everything. Let's force them to pay reparations to individual soldiery and stuff like that. And let's force them to give up a port city to Poland, which was a landlocked state. And thus, Danzig was born, the city-state of Danzig. And basically, this kind of like went back and forth. There were very little concessions to the idea. Germany was like, no, I don't want to give you Danzig. And the League of Nations were like, yeah, but why don't you? And the other side went, well, that's because it's my fucking land and like Germans live here. It's not like, there are that many, that kind of thing. And the League of Nations, said, yeah, shut the fuck up, cuck, and then forced them to do it. And thus we get the new map, the map that was drawn in 1920. Next slide, please.
Yep, can I just say before we move on, aesthetically, I very much like how the artist has painted in these glass panes representing the distorted effect of the glass mirroring people standing near the window. I just want to say, like, that thumbs up, like, bunch of white assholes, but that aesthetic is very nice. I like that a lot. Okay.
So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, this man was an avowed racist who painted this picture. But no, what it actually is that they tried that, and if I remember correctly, there was supposed to be windows behind there, and the artist was like vetoed by a bunch of people. But like ultimately, it doesn't really. Art history is yet again a strange thing, but not my particular.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a picture that is actually very disingenuous, honestly, and it's disingenuous because we are English speakers and these are not English words. You can see that they are
this is true.
really weirdly spelt and just fucked up beyond any kind of idea. All right,
you mean they're in German? Is this German or is it Dutch? Because it looks like German.
Okay, so what we've got here is a quick description of it. If are you basically a TA at this point? I don't know. You're a fucking professor.
I am. Yeah.
Okay. No, so my doctor TA.
Yes. Sometimes you're the teacher, sometimes you're the student.
Okay, whatever. So I would like you to look at pollen, which is in the middle.
Pollen.
Yes. Pollen is literally Poland.
Yes.
And you can see that Poland did not have anything. If you just drew a line from Deutsche to Reiche, which is how you pronounce those things, that would have been the image of what like Poland used to be. It was a landlocked state and stuff like that. We've got Lithuania over there in the corner. They've got nothing to do with anything.
Always.
But sadly, that's the case always. Just to let you guys know, this is a story of just shit that don't matter in the long run, because these are a bunch of places that nobody has actually like paid attention to in a long time. I'm probably going to get fucking castigated by my Lithuanian friends. But in any case, what we got to pay attention to is just the idea of why Danzig fucked over Germany so much. Is if you want to look at Reiche, yeah,
Reich.
That's Germany. That right there is Germany, right?
Okay.
And I'd like you to look at the word Deutsche.
Deutsches.
Yeah. That's Germany too.
Yeah.
So.
Deutsches Reich.
Yes. So the idea that the League of Nations came up with in order to stop the war and also to dick over Germany.
Sorry.
Oh.
I'm trying to get the chat up to date. That's all. My bad.
No, it's all good. But their decision in how to fix this and cause not a first world war again, which would be the second one, yeah, is to split a country literally in twain, to create the good side and the bad side, like in one of those old like fucking cartoons.
That'll cause stability. Yeah, that will really be stable, right?
Yeah. So because Germany was like, don't do this, yo, be a pal, come on, lads. There was a couple of concessions. The first thing is that Danzig was not called part of Poland, as you know, I was told, as we were told. Danzig was made into a free city. However, I would actually just tell you that a free city means fuck all. It doesn't mean anything. It is Polish land. It has its own. It had its own government, which was called the Volstag. However, it was entirely beholden to Polish law and stuff like that. So if you committed a crime, blah blah, you know, that kind of thing. They were ostensibly supposed to be run by the League of Nations. However, the League of Nations immediately ignored all of that, and with the exception of having a commissioner there, fucked off. That didn't matter. Okay.
And it was also population-wise dominated by people who were German, right?
Yes. We're not talking about, the population is kind of like, 60-40 or something like that. We're talking about at the time when Danzig was created in 1920, over 98% of the population were German. Like they identified as German, that kind of thing.
Spoke German and
all that stuff. They were not going to be very happy for very long, because the League of Nations, in order to encourage people to be Danzigians rather than like Polish or whatever or anything like that, Deutsch, immediately stripped citizenship from everyone who was alive in Danzig in 1920, including several British people. So this was kind of like, if you are in the demesne of the free city, you are stateless now.
Fun.
Now, there will be some people, some members of the strange people who are all about like, but there's reasons behind this. The League of Nations, they were a good bunch of people. I would just remind you that the League of Nations very specifically defined people as people who were white. In that picture that was above us, there were 3 people in that picture who were not white, and as a result, were not people, according to the League of Nations.
This picture right here.
Yes.
Okay. 3 non-white people, so 3 non-persons.
People. Yes. So now that we've established just the weirdness of what Danzig is, we have to get to the story, and this is a story of smashing Nazis. So what better to introduce the Nazis than Hugo Boss? Next slide, please.
Yes. There you go.
In 1936, the Nazi Party won the only democratic election that they have ever won outside of Germany. The Volstag elections resulted in an exactly 50% 50% Nazi majority.
Right.
And they almost immediately set about Nazifying the place. They included like bringing propaganda from Germany, giving up things from like giving up things that like were supposed to be like Danzig owned but wasn't owned, because I've just talked about it at length about why Danzig owned it. Kind of that Danzig was kind of a fucked place from the start. To Germany and all that stuff, agitating for the largely German population to want to return to to Germany, because as we just mentioned from the picture before, fucking Germany is in two pieces right now. At this point, I believe, Hitler would have been in power for about 3 years at this point. He would literally have to take a boat and then a plane in order to fly from one side to the other in order to kind of like do his governance. I don't feel bad for Hitler, because you don't have to hand it to the Nazis. However, there is a kind of like political cinema that I love about the idea of him having to like do that in order to just run a country.
Being so inconvenienced.
It's an inconvenient. It's like, oh man, I've got to drive to work.
Yeah.
But I've got to drive to work and it's a boat. Fucking hell, dude. Okay. So some of the shit things that they did, right? First thing, they basically removed the printing presses from Danzig, love of whatever, and almost handed it over to the Nazi Party in Germany. And which immediately started releasing all kinds of the hate and vitriol that we love the Nazis for. The next thing that they did was that they legalized and officially recognized members of brown shirt militia. Now, the brown shirts is a British term. I'll just make it clear so that way the pricks who know what I'm talking about more than me will say otherwise. However, what's a better image than describing shitty Nazis as brown? They illegalized firearms, telling the League of Nations to jump into the fucking Baltic Sea, which they were a port of, because the League of Nations said that the firearms were supposed to be legal in the case of Germany trying to retake the city. They illegalized them, but they also allowed the brown shirt militias to like be a part to like basically have firearms and everything like that. Clearly, very partisanly saying, if you're Polish or Jewish or anything like that, you is fucked, yo. You know, just being very clear about that. Now, my personal favorite one, which is like really, really, really like 80s Thatcherite energy, right?
Okay.
They unofficialized the police force and then immediately rehired them along with a load of the people from the militias that we were just talking about, as well as your psycho uncle, into a thing called the Schutzstaffen Heimwehr Danzig. The Schutzstaffen are the SS. Heimwehr literally means like constabulary or something to that effect.
Okay.
And basically, this is the police force. This is run by this city is protected and guarded by the SS.
So they Nazified the police.
They did it more than it did before.
Yeah.
Which is just ludicrous levels of insanity. Like, if somebody literally just said, okay, you is all fired, now you is all hired, here, have this picture, and it's just like a picture of like Elon Musk or some shit, like a Tesla image on the side, you'd be like, that's super villain shit.
Yes.
Elon, what's going on here? You know, but fucking whatever. So now we've dealt with the baddies of the story, who were very much agitating in a manner that is like not right, but in a kind of like what would otherwise be considered a reasonable way, for the reunification of Danzig with Germany, right?
Okay.
Who are these guys? Because that's what Nazis do.
Mm.
Fascists, racist people. They use the things that are present around them in order to fucking get what they want. What they want is everything.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. To put not too fine a point on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, the fact that the League of Nations turned around and ostensibly stole sections of German land and then just said, oh, yeah, you're a free city now. Also, you are the ownership of Poland now. Also, fuck all you German people. You're all stateless unless you become Danzigians, which didn't exist as like an actual thing, right? And like you can kind of like see how this is a train wreck waiting to happen.
They're handing Hitler fodder, reasons,
and
justification. Yeah.
And like not to put a whole thing of like, well, this is like today. This is like today because by dint of the fact that people are otherwise uninformed about this specific event, or even just like how fascism is able to be an insidious force rather than just a political apparatus or anything like that, we are tacitly allowing these events to occur again, which is really miserable and really sad. Let's talk about killing some of them, because the next thing is going to be, we are going to talk about mailmen, specifically the Polish post office. Move the next slide, please.
Okay.
So, this is Polish post office number 1.
Make it really big so people can see it very well.
It is where the one and only proper battle would be had for the heart and soul of Danzig. And they will lose. However, they will own those fucking Nazis as they do it. It is also the only official building that Poland had in Danzig. There was another one, technically. It was an ammo depot, which kind of like existed on like a peninsula. It was called Waterplatte, and Waterplatte is kind of the thing that is most well known about Danzig properly. But fuck that. That's not Danzig. This is the true place. I know true Danzig, okay, guys? The Englishman knows true Danzig, guys.
You are the Danzig explainer.
Yes. Authentic graphic. Yeah. Okay, so.
Also, I'm going to swap us, just so you know, I'm going to swap us around this because this, yes, I think it looks better on this side. So there we go. Just moving. Just, oh, yep, cool. Thanks.
So, whereas most things in Danzig are like really old, and you know, people like talk about it as being like, okay, it's a collection of communities, it's been around for decades, for like hundreds of years. You know, it was part of the First Reich, which was the Holy Roman Empire, the Holy German Empire. I mean, you know, that kind of thing. This thing was built almost exactly for Danzig, okay? And it had kind of like a pride of place in the area. People kind of like describe it as such. Not in the way that people who go to the museum will find it, because if you believe the museum, this is like an episode of the fucking A-Team, okay? But it's not like that. It was just that it's a big building. People recognize it. Danzig was reasonably low-lying, you know, like all the buildings and stuff like that. So basically you just say, hey, yo, I'm going to meet you at the post office, and you go meet there, kind of thing. It was also the easiest way to get post out and communications and things like that. So, like, it was a very busy place. You'll also see that it is a big brick shithouse of a place, and it's built like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very small windows, basically. I mean, some windows, but quite small. They're not, yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, you know, this is like a magnificent image of everything. Next slide, please.
Oh, by the way, can I just mention the fence you see in the front, because there's a park around it? Is that why we're seeing this fence? Okay.
Yes. Oh, well, we'll get to it in a second. We'll come back to this image, but like, keep your powder cool, keep your powder dry. Cool. Okay, so this is the people. These are the post people taken, I believe, in like April or so of 1939, of 2039. No, 1939. And I just want to make something abundantly clear. They are very boring people, right? This isn't a story of how people would like it to be, which is like people who were like by sheer grit of self and sheer determination of everything like that. They found a way and they fought back against the Nazi threat.
Mhm.
These were postmen. These are just normal people. Okay. They were like, some sources have kind of like said that they're all like crack shots and know how to undermine governments and shit like that because the Polish government
Yeah.
recognized that Danzig was going to be like a powder keg or some shit like that.
Mhm.
Is no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
These are civilian fighters, okay? These are what is recognized nowadays as civilians. And they are beyond anything else people who were alive in Danzig and they just got caught up in everything. And what that makes happen is what happens next in the following stories and everything like that. Incredible. Okay. One thing that would be noted in order to kind of like undercut some of the people who want to go like, oh no, these guys are here, these guys are badasses, they're like, whatever. One of the things that they want to talk about is they say that members of is that every member here, yeah,
Mhm.
were members of the Polish Rifle Association, which is a, you know, like national body. They're designed to like regulate and train people in how to use rifles.
Like the
I
NRA
wonder,
used to be before it got taken over by the extremist gun manufacturers and turned into a fear generator. They used to like do educational stuff and they were supporting the Tommy gun ban and they were about responsible.
okay,
Back
so that's
ear-
actually
early
really
on.
interesting. I like the story that I've always had about the NRA, the, you know, the American one, is that they have just been a shit show from the beginning.
And
Like,
they actually came out in support of in the 1920s, so way back. But they supported the machine gun ban back in the 1920s during Prohibition because of all the gun violence. So yeah, they were not always completely owned by the gun manufacturers and on a pro Second Amendment agenda. They were initially like more local, and then they got taken over and radicalized. So.
Well, in that case, this is just going to be a thing. I'm going to write this down so that way I can.
Yeah, we can check into it more,
later.
but that is my
I'm
understanding.
going to look it up later.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1 sec. There you are. Okay. So these guys are supposed to be all members of the Polish Rifle Association. Just to be clear, everybody, the Polish Rifle Association is a license akin to what you would get if you had a driver's license. More people in this picture have PRA, Polish Rifle Association, like licenses, than they do have driving licenses, and they have more cars. Okay. And it's just to do with the way that things went. You're more likely as a person to need access to a gun if you're living on the Baltic states in the 1920s, than you are to need to show that you know how to drive. It's just like one of the things you have. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see that guy, and he's holding a gun, kind of a bit. You know, I'm not going to say awkwardly, but you know, he's got that. Yeah, that is the only gun that is like photographically evidence to be in the possession of these people before everything that happens now. Okay, so yes, crack warriors who have one gun between about 50 of them. Yes.
Yeah, this is yes, scary.
Okay, so the next thing that happens is actually going to be a lot of political backsliding and stuff like that. So League of Nations, they're in charge of Danzig. They're in charge of ensuring that Danzig remains a free state. Ostensibly, this also means that if like Poland one day got a bug up their asshole and somehow materialized an army, they would try to invade Danzig. The League of Nations would tut their fingers and shake their head at them, something like that. I don't know. But no, it was to stop Germany from trying to take it. Okay.
Yes. Let's be honest.
Which was exactly what was happening right now. Now, England and France had notarized basically the formation of Danzig with the understanding that they would be there in its defense, right? Now, I want you to kind of like think in your heads, guys, as you're thinking about this. When would you, as the anthropomorphic personification of like the guardian forces of the great white nation of the League of Nations,
Hmm.
Um, when would you kind of like say, okay, I'm going to put feet on the ground, right? 1939, January, right? The Nazi Party in Germany starts putting forward like recommendations that Danzig rejoin the German state, right? Ostensibly, you're like the British. They're there to fucking make sure that you are not, that Danzig does not become German again.
Hmm.
And in January of 1939, they just ask for it, right? February, the brown shirts, who have been kind of like a general agitating force, start firebombing Jewish homes. March, generally speaking, people are told that even like their firearms are illegalized and stuff like that. Well, you've got to hand that shit in. And if you're found with it, you're liable and you could be shot, kind of thing. I can't remember the next month. April. There you go. Members of the fucking Schutzstaffen, the people we were just talking about it.
Yes, the SS
Yeah.
Chancellor.
Full
Or
bore
whatever.
start to impound and disappear members of of an anti-Nazi group who were called the Danzigians. I don't know why they're called the Danzigians in English. They're called something else, but like whatever. This is an impounding this is a arrest and impounding that resulted in excess of 30 people dying in one night. May. The League of Nations is asked to leave Danzig. June. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
A battleship appears in the Bay of Danzig. Oh, I'm sorry. This is July. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The League was told that this is because there is an ammo depot that we had talked about very, very slightly before.
Wasser, irgendwas? Water or
Yes.
something? Waterplat?
Wasserplat. Wasserplat.
Okay.
Name. However, they decided the Schleswig-Holstein, which is this ship, decides to show that they are, there to kind of like keep the peace and everything like that by pointing their guns directly into the city of Danzig.
Very peaceful.
Yeah.
Super, super peaceful.
Okay. So now some more viewer interaction. What month would you be okay with it?
At what point in the escalation would the people who demanded the humiliation and division actually back up their agreement with action? At what point are they going to say, no, Hitler, we're going to tell you now, we're going to push back now to stop you pushing forward more? Is it not
just
Hitler?
to be clear, this isn't Hitler.
Okay.
This is a prick. His name was like, I believe it was Gruder, I think.
It could be. Sounds German.
This is going to be kind of a thing of...
Yeah. So, but was he acting with the blessings of and the knowledge of and the approval of? Was he sort of like a, what do you call that? Like an asset or whatever of, or was he just like okay.
So the thing that's going to be a big old like problem that you have with these things is I can't like turn around and tell you why any of these things, like why specific members, like specific people. There is only like the larger actions of the people involved.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. So, so for instance, I can tell you that the person who was in charge, who was the chancellor of the Volkswagen at the time, was a dude called Albert Forster, Albert Forster, or whatever. I can also tell you that he was like a really, really crazy bastard. And he actually joined like the German Nazi Party after what happens here happens.
Oh, okay.
However, I can't really tell you whether or not he was doing this with like German approval. I like to him, and this kind of like comes to like what the Fash do. The Fash are all about things kind of falling into their lap. Okay, they're all about things just happening and them taking advantage of what's happening.
I'm doing some parallels here between like Trump being a self-motivated but also unwitting asset of Russia, because their interests align, right? Their goals align, even though they might not coordinate openly and consciously. Like they're working together toward the same goals, kind of like puts them as in a tangential allyship, as it were.
Very much so. So it's kind of like this thing of what's going on, and like it's very, very difficult to kind of like keep it clear on how like the Nazis, how the fascists and stuff like that were really using like anti-Polish sentiment specifically for the citizens of Poland in order to like enliven members of these brown shirt groups, of these militias and stuff like that. However, it was in a very kind of like they were just already dealing with what was there, right? So we've gotten two answers. One of them is April, which is a pretty good thing. That's basically the smashing of the like pieces of anti-fascist sentiment in the area.
Someone's very specific.
Have, yeah, it was also very specific, but also springtime for Hitler in Germany is like a great appreciation.
Someone did write springtime for Hitler. Yes. Someone had the 1st of September, a very, very specific date.
Okay, well, we'll get to the 1st of September.
Someone's a little
it is important.
know-it-all.
Someone's in the know. Someone's reading the Wikipedia article before I am. Okay, so just to be clear, England and France were in full-bore appeasement mode. The Great Appeasement is what it is called in history. It's basically, let's do what the Nazis want, so that way they'll stop doing what they want.
Yeah, give them what they want, because that will stop them from asking for more. Because that's how that works. If you just give people what they want, they don't say, oh, let me push boundaries. That never happens with children or fascists.
Yes. And basically, England and France said, fuck no. No, leaving it be. We're done.
We don't actually care about the Poles that much. Like, okay, Treaty of Versailles, when it was just like, about humiliation and symbolically, and also realistically taking away land. But when it came to enforcement, like, we weren't actually going to enforce it.
We've got other things to do. We've got other things.
Yeah, we're not going to die for Poles.
Come on, we've got to beat the shit out of some brown people. We've
got colonizing
Americas to do. That, we aren't actually like seething psychopaths. And meanwhile, the English have to just sit there with their thumbs up their assholes.
Yeah, I mean, they're just Slavs, right? They're just Slavs. So, like,
sadly,
yeah.
Now, Poland was supposed to help Danzig in this circumstance because remember that even though this is supposed to be Polish land, it is the free city of Danzig. They did almost nothing. Okay. To say that they did nothing is actually a bit unfair on the Polish people because, like I said before, the idea that they could somehow materialize a fucking army out of nothing is kind of unfair on Poland, right? Poland was destroyed by the First World War. They were still destroyed in 1936, okay? They were like not in a position to actually fight a war in any way, shape, or form.
And also, was it their legal responsibility if the city was covered by the League of Nations? I mean, did they even have sort of a sovereignty?
We will argue until the cows come home on that subject because there are literal people who say even though it was because they had a Polish post office there, which we'll be talking about right now, they should have fought for Danzig until Danzig was no longer there, which is bullshit. Like, fuck that. No. Like, I'm just going to kind of sort of say Danzig is on its own, right? Gondor is on its own, sadly. This isn't Gondor, by the way. Fuck. Next slide, please.
I'll big this up.
This is another picture. This is a picture that is taken like quite a while after the war, right? You can actually see there is some still some damage, like the water tower over there in the upper right hand corner. That is like that's like that used to be a bunch of buildings. It's been bombed to shit. Okay. So this is like Danzig like thing, but it is the best picture that we have of the post office, which is this little thing with a load of things on it.
Oh,
as you can see,
this lines.
Yeah.
Is there
these
any
lines.
way for me to zoom in on a slideshow? No, I don't think there is.
If you can, if you click on the window you're using and then control, zoom
Okay.
wheel kind of thing.
Control.
Scroll
Okay, I'll try that. Oh my goodness! Look at you. You're so smart. Oh, I see. Okay. All it does is resize. Okay. I think. Hey. Yes, finally. I mean, I had to get it to 400%, but eventually, I can't move it
Yeah.
in any meaningful way. So
going it back, kind of
300%. Okay.
Yeah, no, this is fine. This is
Okay.
fine. So just to give you kind of an idea of like the space of the place. This is kind of like the image of the place.
Mhm.
It's going to be a bit different, but in ways that you'll note it, that we'll talk about, right? All these lines that you'll see, fuck them, right?
These lines
Because
here.
this is these lines that they don't matter,
Okay.
right? Because you've got to kind of like keep in mind this thing, right? This is in the center of Danzig,
Mhm.
right? This is in the center of a city-state that was already seeing violence, that was already seeing horrible shit. And basically, this is the one and only like proper fight for Danzig that occurs
Okay.
in the taking of the city, right?
Uh-huh.
Um,
So is this L-shaped building? Is that the
Yes.
post office?
yes.
Okay, so this is the post
Like-
office. Here's some
and then you
trees
kind of-
in front. You can
you
see
got
the
some
street.
trees.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's like a
the trees-
courtyard.
Yeah, there's going to be things. There'll be things about those streets. You'll see
Mhm.
that there are some things here. Like the big reason why there are all these lines is that actually these are the German battle plans on how they will take the city.
Oh,
They will take
okay.
the post office because, like I said, the Polish post office number one was the only post office in the city, but two, it was like the symbol of Polish existence in the city. You take you take it, you'll be done, right?
Yeah.
The ammo depot does exist, but it's all the way over there in Waterplant.
Right.
The grand scheme of things. So the Polish government does what they can, which is, next slide, please, sending this fucking Chad of a human being, known as Konrad Gdarsky. We will talk at length about him. He is lionized in the Polish oeuvre as being like, he is Hogan from Hogan's Heroes.
I can't. You're just calling him a Chad. I just think that. Sorry, I was always.
Look at him.
It is this tuft of hair that really puts him into the Chad category.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also the moustache. Look, it's
His
in
moustache.
Yes. It's in line. What it is that it's in line with the edge of his lip.
Yes, it is.
So it's kind of like a line, but it also finishes inside his nostril. So that way you just know that man sits in front of the fucking mirror.
Oh,
or
yes.
at least for this picture, he sat in front of the fucking mirror, painstakingly making sure that he was clean shaven except for this strange slug of a hairline.
I now that you pointed out, because I don't pay that much attention to facial grooming, other than they're like, it's neat or it's not neat, it's there, it's not there. But you're right, he's got this like perfect little, almost like gloss, almost like a frosting line between the bottom of his top of his lip and the bottom of his mustache, and also at the top too. You're right; it grows all the way up into his nose.
So, at the time that we're going to bring up, Konrad Gdarsky is 39 years old. The average life expectancy for people in the Polish army is about 10 years odd. Okay. He joined the army when he was like 19 or maybe even 20.
Mm-hmm.
So he's well past his fucking time.
Yeah.
Right? He is, if you would, a fantastic idea of he is 3 days from fucking retirement.
Okay.
In the sense of he's over the hill.
He's Danny Glover in every.
He's Danny Glover and he's too old for this shit and he's done. Right? Poland told him, like, the specificism of his orders are kind of contested. However, if you want to believe the concept of it, his job was to defend the entirety of Danzig from the oncoming war that everyone knew about.
This guy?
However,
like one guy? Okay.
Yeah, this one dude. However, the thing that would have actually been is he was told that there was this force known as the Pomeranian force. It was basically an area of It was an area in Poland called Pomerania, which had like they were building up an army and stuff like that. And they were basically like, okay, your job is to buy time for about 24 hours or so, and the Pomeranian unit will come in and basically save your ass. Defend what you can. We suggest going to the ammo depot, which is all the way over there. Okay. In order to help with this, he was given some guns, which was like a couple of machine guns, like a load of handguns, like an obscene number of handguns, because it seems that they were like fucking candy at this point, and 2 crates of grenades. And he was told to defend the entirety of Danzig with this shit. Okay. So the moment he got in,
Yeah.
he saw the Holstein sat there on the port with their guns directed towards the ammo depot and stuff like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. They moved the guns at one point to point at the ammo depot as things kind of like got a bit more heated,
Yes.
because everybody knew that this was going on. And he was like, I'm not going there. Fuck that. And he went to the only other place in Danzig, which was the post office. Next slide, please.
All right, I have a question. So
Okay.
I'm out of coffee. I need to stretch my legs. I was wondering, could we take like can we take a break as long as it requires for me to make a fresh cup of coffee? And we'll come in with part 2 of this Lord of the Rings trilogy of because we actually haven't even gotten to the amazing part stuff. This has all been very good and entertaining and informative.
Yeah. Polish John Rambo. Yes. Yes. Yes, trans gamer girl. This is Polish John Rambo. He's done with all of this shit, and like you're in for a surprise. Okay, let's make some coffee.
Yeah. So I'm gonna swap it off to music, and we will come back. Let's call it like 3 or 4 minutes after the top of the hour. Okay. So I'm gonna mute us and put the music back on. People in the chat, you can go get a refreshment yourself, and we will see you again very soon.
Okay.
everyone. I am back. Lace Argar is not currently, although I'm sure he will join us shortly. And what does this say? Mute? No, it's fine. You don't have to mute. No. Yeah. So I just wanted to say, someone in the chat asked, "Where is Kevin?" And that is a fine question. Because until this morning he was scheduled to be here. Sadly, he called in sick. Got a message from him this morning. You made tea. You missed nothing. I'm actually like, I think also coffee is faster to make than tea. I assume that Lace is making a cup of tea. So you have to wait for the water to boil, and then you have to wait for the leaves to brew, and it's a whole thing. So yeah, unfortunately, did I personally drive to the farm to harvest the coffee beans? No, I did get some sort of bio, which is what Germans called organic. They're like bio Kartoffeln or something. So bio is organic. And I got some organic fair trade coffee beans. Definitely did not drive to the farm to harvest them at all. But yes, sadly, Kevin, I wish he would have been here. I think he really would. I think he really would have joined this. I'm also being very vain today. I'll explain that in a second. So if Kevin is listening to this as he is recuperating, as he is, what was that old kind of old-fashioned term that people would use? Like, convalescing. If Kevin is convalescing and listening to this, hey, sorry, I gotta put my headphones on too. I was just sort of entertaining the chat. I was explaining that if Kevin is listening to this and convalescing, we do miss you. I'm sure there would have been more dick jokes if Kevin would have been here. But maybe if we do this again, he will not. I don't know if I'm just gonna make fun. I'm gonna assume he has a hangover. So if he could learn how to hold his liquor a bit better. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, and then me just being super vain is because I got new glasses, which I think I should talk about more because I'm self-centered. But no, they were very expensive, and also I had my broken ones for over a month. So yeah, I am I actually did my hair properly, which I have to say, I wasn't sure how I'd feel about going gray. All right, let's just talk about Kristi for a second. But I like that my hair sparkles. They're like little streamers, or like little Christmas tinsel in my hair. I think it looks okay. So anyway, that's me just being egotistical and self-centered. And
one of the things that is really the case is I've washed out this room so that way I can keep away from all the grey hairs in my room.
It's also good for washing out any slight wrinkles that you have. I should wash myself out too, just to get away from my. But
okay. Yeah. I'm getting a lot of questions about do you have a Twitter? Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah. So look at this.
What I'm gonna do.
A lot of thirsty people in the chat now.
Thirsty people. You're all fucking monsters. Melodious. Embrace the grey. No.
Yeah, promote yourself a little bit.
So first thing, my name, my Twitter is @LaceArgar. So it says,
is it Argar or Argar? Because is there a silent A between the R and the Gar? Just say it's a silent
Argar. A. Argar. That's just what I do. All right. It just. I love it. Okay, so one of the things that you'll see is the reason why I am called Lace Argar in my thing, and it's a sad thing, but it's fucking hilarious. Basically, the North Yorkshire Police the North Yorkshire Police decided that Laith Al Najjar was too hard to pronounce. So even though I wrote it down for them, they decided to officially recognize my name as Lace Argar, which is just fantastic. I got a call from a policeman who was just like, "Is Lace there?" And I was like, "Who the fuck is Lace?" I was just kind of like, "I want to talk about the very serious crime that you were a victim of," and blah blah blah. And I was kind of like, "My name's Lace, dude."
I know that.
And I just immediately kind of so sad, and I was just, and it kind of did me in. But anyway.
Yeah, by the way,
does Lace have a cat? I don't have a cat. I'm sad.
Kevin did just misgender you, and I said I wanted to. I was gonna have Lace, on, and he's like, "Oh, don't you mean she?" I'm like, "No, it's a thing. No. It's a thing."
So don't worry. Kevin thinks that I am the queen of his chat, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with being the queen of his chat. But Yeah, like my pronouns are they and them. You'll find me on thing. I also do. I have a YouTube channel. Like by all means, it's right. Like, it's like let me see if I can actually like find the damn thing. There you go. It's not got much in there, but I do sometimes like fart ass around and do like live streams that I delete immediately. I think that works. And I mostly exist on Twitch. I am a chess streamer because I need to be even more of a stereotype
Of a nerd.
of a nerd. All of it. I'm better than Kev at being like good at his shit, good at like selling myself. So as you can see, I have like I am Lay Sagar.
Yeah.
I have like 33 subscribers. Yeah, I do. It's
Link.
it's
People want links. Please put it in the chat.
It's all linked. It's all linked.
Where in the chat?
Yeah, and I put Twitter and I put Twitch and I put YouTube.
I don't see it coming up in my live chat.
Oh no!
Dang it. Oh, are you?
Wait a second. It might take a little second.
Okay. Show. Are you a You know what it might be is because you mentioned something at the beginning, didn't you? Are you currently? You are not a mod, and that will be how I fix this. So hold on a second. Then you will be able to add moderator.
It locked it all. I'm sorry. I'm not.
No, it's okay. You just need to be a moderator in order to post in order to post links. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah. People are thirsty for more nerd knowledge, so.
Yeah.
So now, if you can repost it, then it'll work this time.
Well, there's my Twitter. Does that work? Let's have a look. It's shown. There you go. There you go. I've been wrenched.
Yes.
There's me YouTube, and there's me Twitch. But yeah, that's me. There is no cat. No, sadly, there is no cat. Cats are not allowed in this house, mostly on account of the fact that my landlady is a fascist.
Yeah, so I also can't have any pets. Yeah, I've got
Oh, you can't have pets. Fuck that, man.
No pets. What? No pets.
Join a renters union strike. Yeah, fucking cat.
Yeah, well, my apartment is quite small. I could make a lot of places for a cat to go up and down, but there wouldn't be a lot of places to go back and forth, and it is very downtown. Germans, unlike the, well, I say the British, but it's, English, but yes, the British, they don't just let their cats roam outside. There aren't just sort of like free cats to pet as there used to be when I lived in the UK, where cats would just sort of like sit on the pillar of of like a fenced in area and then just sort of like feel entitled to get pets from people as they walked by. Like I don't have that here.
No, they like cats are entitled little shits, but they are uniquely entitled only in UK.
Mm-hmm.
It's very because true. We worship them. We are trying to be Egyptian that way. We're Ptolemaic.
All right.
People also demand a cat. Well, I demand a cat as well. Not going to get one. Rory Collective Rising. Fuck you.
All right, so I think we left off with the Chad of Danzig.
The Chad of Danzig. Conrad Kudersky. Yeah. Fucking creepy bastard. Okay. Like just to kind of like I just made a big thing of like sort of saying like these are just whatever. I'm gonna undercut everything I said, right?
Okay.
About him being like this badass, like the hero of our story, and blah blah blah. Konrad Kudersky could not shoot very well. He's a soldier who could not shoot, which is like a figure of anything. It's okay because he's a military engineer. Like he's designed for undermining, setting explosives, those kind of things. However, when your job is defend a city, be the ostensible like hero of the hero of the hour kind of thing, and you aren't very good at firing a gun, this is a great undermining thing. Also, he could speak German well enough, but not well enough to actually know where he was, and as a result, he would often get lost in Danzig. The point is that I'm trying to humanize this dude. This dude is not like just a robotic monster action hero dude. This guy is a person too. All of these people are racist because they happen to fully believe in the concept of what is called what was called Pomeranian superiority, which is something that exists right now in Poland as a thing, but has been unified into Polish nationalism. Basically, they thought as the Nazis did, except for Polish people rather than Aryan people.
Oh, okay, all right, you're right. They're okay. Where they centered who was pure was just different.
They recentered who was pure.
Okay.
However, there's kind of this is the kind of like we've made jokes, we've made laughs, we've made goofs and gaffs and everything like that. This is kind of like where things kind of get a bit serious. This is the serious third act. Okay, guys. Gdańsk entered the city in around about July or August. It's not really clear when that shit happens, but he appeared pretty much like went AWOL immediately, you know, because he was supposed to go to the fucking ammo depot and he didn't go there. He went to the post office with illegal firearms and 2 crates of grenades. And he got to the post office and he found a group of almost 100 or so people. Now, there's going to be some contesting on how many people were there and stuff like that. The closest thing we have to how many people there were on the Polish side of this battle was that there is basically just a roll of who the postman workers are, you know. But in addition to having the postmen there, the postmen and women or whatever you want to call them, there were their families, including young children, right? In addition, because this was the only symbol of Polish power in the city, a bunch of refugees. So we're talking about a group of almost like 150 people, all shacked up in a little a post office, right? While the city that they live in is like increasingly becoming hateful and repugnant against them, right? Another thing that I want to kind of like undercut the thing for is they refuse to let Jewish people into the post office. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, remember, this is racist on racist violence.
Yes.
Okay, white on white violence.
Right.
But Gdańsk had a really, really tall order to tell because he's got some shit that he's got to do, and he's got a bunch of postmen and their families and ostensible political refugees, and that's all he had. So he set about making plans. Next slide. This is the post office that we had before. Now there are the trees, right?
These trees.
There's these 3 trees. Yeah. This is all, by the way, the post office land. So this is like all like part of the system, and it used to be like it's like a mansion. It's like really cool. Gdańsk had all of these cut down. He had all these trees cut down. So he had free sight line for the entirety of the area. He then, and like, you know, if you kind of remember that there was like quite a forested area in that air view picture that we had, he also had like trees on the other side of the road cut down. So that way he had freer eyes line. He then took one of the crates of grenades, which was like the only thing that I had in fucking abundance, and started lacing it throughout the little bits of land around the area. He then started to like distribute the guns and was kind of, and this isn't like in a men of Gdansk, you men of Danzig, you must fight for your people. He was literally like, yo dudes, do you want a gun? And everyone was like, fuck yeah, they took my gun, dude. You know, like that's kind of like how that went down. And he quickly ran out because there was like, at best, there was like 20 guns, most of them handguns, that kind of thing, and not much else. So he went to the ammo depot, yeah, and asked if he could have some guns, and they gave them to him. And they gave him 2 BARs and a couple of rifles.
Now, what's the first thing you mentioned?
BAR. A BAR is a Browning automatic machine gun.
Okay.
If you have ever seen that whole thing of like being, oh yeah, you're like they make an emplacement and it's like sat down and they're like bam 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 bam, you know, they're lying on the ground and that kind of thing. That's a Browning, right? That's an old version of the Browning. Okay? There'll be people in the chat who are probably going like, no, that's not what a Browning. That's what a Browning is, guys. Come on, just
go with this.
Go with me. So the next thing that he did in order to kind of like make sure that this stuff was working was he started to set people up in such a way that they could make adequate sightlines. And you can kind of like say the whole thing of like, oh yeah, this is just going to be whatever, like, oh, what is this? He's setting up an ambush or whatever. Yeah, basically, he knew that 24 hours was asking quite a lot, because if it came to like a war, he's one dude and a couple of postmen and not much else, right? But luckily, just as shit falls into the lap of fascists, shit falls into the lap of anti-fascists, which is what these guys are, because they are fighting the fascists.
Yeah, they're racist anti-fascist, but they're still anti-fascist.
Well, anti-fascist is a belief in the concept of fascism not being like the way to go, and that's all it is. So now we're going to go to the next step, which is this thing, this picture. This is a picture of the battle itself. So shit pops off on the 1st of September, 1939, right? The Holstein immediately starts shelling the shit out of the ammo depot in what is called the Battle of Waterplatte. Not only do I not care about that thing, but I care about it so little that I don't actually remember that much about it, except for the fact that the Holstein managed to obliterate the ammo depot almost immediately, killing most of the combatants.
Well, when you're sitting on a bunch of explosives. And munitions.
Yeah. They then turned around and started, just like dealing with the different stuff. Members of the German army started to approach. The guy that we were talking about before, the leader, the chancellor, the Senate president or whatever, Forster, immediately seceded the entirety of Danzig to the German army. Like immediately. Like it was a complete fall. The Volkstag was immediately like, what's his name? This all happened in the span of about 2 hours.
Really blitzkrieg, huh?
Yeah, and the shots were started falling at about 4 a.m., right? Simultaneously, a group of Nazis came along to take the what's his name? The Polish post office. They were supported. Wait a second. They were supported by artillery and armored cars. They had in all about 180 members of the Danzig police, who, interestingly, like sources of it, call them the Danzig police. These are the fucking SS, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Nazi cops. These are the Nazi cops, okay, guys?
Yes.
Anyway, they had howitzers, they had artillery pieces, whatever, right? Not only were they expected, not only was this supposed to be like an ostensible like cakewalk for them, because they did not think there was going to be any kind of defense, because what fucking defense is there?
Yeah.
He's a postman, but they fully expected this to basically be a big PR stunt. So they fully allowed anybody to enter the area. If you look at that photo from earlier and all that stuff, there is that thing of it's like, oh, there are police cordons and like, oh, they're not letting people in and blah blah blah. That's fucking wrong.
This one here with all the lines on it.
Yeah. There are like little spots and they are supposed to be like police cordons. Didn't happen. Those police cordons did not exist. Everybody was allowed to go in and out as they wished. Like one of the kids like tried to climb on the gun and nearly got tried to climb on one of the armored cars and nearly got the shit shot out of him, because go figure, he's like whatever. Anyway, this kid like this is supposed to be a cakewalk, right? So willing were the people willing to be doing this kind of stuff that actually the Albert Forster, the leader of the Nazi Party, who is also the Chancellor President and all that shit. And he was like, just had surrendered just had seceded Danzig to the German party, arrived in order to watch the events, right? This was kind of like something that was going to be seen everywhere, right? What they didn't expect is what happened next, which is something akin to what we're talking about with this picture, with the grainy picture of whatever, which is almost immediately as the Germans came, gathered, everything like that. They set off the grenades that they had around, like dotted around the place, immediately killing 26 German soldiers, and then letting rip with their Browning automatic rifles.
So the Nazis are like pulling up on this place.
Yeah,
they're like, we're just going to take this.
And they immediately got the shit shot out of them.
like
this turned from an immediate problem of what this turned from a basic cakewalk and hey, let's rubberneck and see what's going on, into, oh Jesus Christ, the First World War has happened again, because the place had turned into a fucking killing field.
So sorry, let me go back. Sorry. This is not, I wanted, like, yeah, this one here, because again, you got all of this open spot here, right? If you take these trees down, there's nowhere to hide if someone just has, I'm just kind of thinking like John McClane when he, like, blew up part of the basement, glass, who gives a fuck about glass, that part, and then just opening up fire, just
And that is kind of like what they did. They opened up the sight lines and they set it up. This is really fucking lucky. Gdarsky would not have gotten away with it if the Nazis were expecting an actual fight, as we will find out later. All right, because we'll get to that. Right, we'll get to that. Because there's no way that you can defend yourself using like a bunch of postmen and stuff like that. There's just no way. But for right now, let's enjoy the Schadenfreude of next slide, please. A fuck ton of Nazis hiding behind an armored car.
Yes, yeah.
That people have been, the people in the post office have been pelting with guns and rifle bullets and grenades for the last 6 hours. This was taken 6 hours into the combat, right? About an hour after this point, this armored car is going to explode by an assault by one of the Polish postmen, who charged up and threw 3 grenades in, hopefully with a witty one-liner. At which point, everybody inside was fucking vaporized. All right. He then ran back into the fucking building, reasonably all right.
Wow.
Yeah. This is kind of like the thing of what we're talking about when it comes to surprising bits of ineptitude on the parts of the Nazis, because really they shouldn't have gone anywhere. You can actually see in this picture in the upper right left-hand corner, there are like some holes. Yeah. Upper left-hand corner of this, the Nazi scared thing. Yeah.
Okay.
You can see the upper left-hand corner that there is like a hole,
here?
right?
Yeah, blown in, yes.
Yeah, blown in. This is because people were shooting at this area because this is where one of the machine gun emplacements were. This machine gun emplacement happened to take most of the kill most of the Germans, which happened to be in excess of in addition to members of the police constabulary and members of the army and stuff like that, happened to also just be brown shirt civilians who were coming in to like smash some people. So the numbers here are all kinds of like fucked with as being an aspect.
Okay.
And this is kind of like, sadly, the story thread disintegrates to a certain degree, because this is just battle. This is just people getting shot to pieces, people getting attacked and stuff like that. And there's not much to it. What we do have, though, is what happens at around about 9 a.m. At this point, there's been battle for about 5 hours. There was an attempt to curry surrender from the people under a flag of truce from the Nazi party. That man was immediately shot, contravening, interestingly, the Geneva Conventions, but I don't care.
But also keeping in line with the well-known motto, never trust a Nazi, never trust a Nazi, never trust a Nazi. I think.
I'm jiggy with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's okay. I can say that then. Better than just me being a callous fuck thing. I don't care. Anyway, so they kind of got like so as you heard, I just talked about like how the Nazis immediately got their shit wrecked, and
Oh
how
yeah, this
like
was like yeah.
how it's just immediately like how they were not expecting this. They were put aback. They were repelled in two separate occasions between like 4 a.m. and 9 a.m., like this kind of thing. At about 10, they tried a second offensive, this time breaching the front doors of the post office, right? Godursky, who had been injured at one point, did the first, last, and only probably like brave thing he ever did in his life, which is remain behind as people drew back and basically held the front lobby, the front foyer of the post office on his own. He was shot several times, and he immediately just drew a grenade that he had specially made for this situation, and stood in the doorway getting shot to pieces as he collapsed the front door of the post office, completely blocking off that method of egress.
So the explosion actually brought the walls and every rubble down, so that
there is a facade. This area that we can see, like in this picture, it is a facade. So actually, it's relatively easy to bring down.
This one right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can see that there's like a little area, and it's like a facade. It's like a bit of a facade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, this is kind of like where the things kind of go down as being like, like the sad bits start.
Yeah.
But
well, like 300.
No good things. Let's just go with it. This is just how it goes. Okay. At 11 o'clock, they curry favor trying to the Germans curry favor trying to kind of like get a surrender. This time they did not do it with a white flag or stand out in the open. And like I like the idea that there's somebody just kind of like turn around and go like, "Hey, we can't hear you. Come a bit closer," and like proper getting a laugh out of that. But at this point, the Germans are kind of like, "Fuck this shit. We have a naval gun. We're going to shoot the fuck out of people." Right? So they call in the naval gun, which is the Holstein, which had just been finished destroying a ammo depot. Yeah. However, the Danzig constabulary did not know how to tell the Holstein how to shoot. And as a result, they shelled several buildings surrounding the area, including, if you remember that bird's eye view where there was that like water tower that I made reference to. They just obliterated that, which just so happened to be the Nazi Party headquarters at the time.
Oops.
They also destroyed one of the howitzers entirely by accident. Did not hit the fucking thing at all, right? This is kind of like thing. So they decided, okay, enough, right? So they broke in at some point and they set an explosive to hopefully collapse one of the walls, basically make a method of egress and stuff like that. And they did so, and all this managed to do was actually just create another position for the other Browning automatic rifle, which nobody had used, which was basically unused up to this point, to shoot the shit out of more Nazis.
Why not?
So this was like a killing field at this point, right? And they this kind of continued on. At this point, it's been about 16 hours of continuous combat. There's been a couple of lulls in the sense of there was at one point somebody stopped shooting so that they can do the surrender thing. There was a bit of a lull here and there, but basically these postmen have single-handed, here's the thing, right? From the German perspective, right, they needed this post office as a symbol that they had taken Danzig, right? So for 16 hours, a bunch of postmen and political refugees from Danzig stopped the fucking blitzkrieg dead in its tracks, which I find to be such a magnificent image.
Yes, yeah. It's supposed to be this great war machine. And one little thing.
So magnificent. Just the idea of thing. So we'll talk about this in a sec. We'll talk about this later. But there is actually like a statistic that I find fantastic, really, really great. But anyway, but in any case, at this point, members of the German army actually get their shit together and they kind of like properly are able to do things. They're able to communicate with the Holstein properly, and they shell the place. And even though it is built fantastically and very well made and all that stuff, it doesn't stand up to naval guns just fucking the shit out of.
Don't think the architect planned for that.
No, I don't think so. No. But anyway, it turns out the fight isn't over, however, because even though the post office is a fucking slag heap right now, the postman decided to hide out in the basement, which turned into another pitched battle as more German brown shirts were killed as they were trying to take
the basement.
In the basement. It's like a fucking, and it really is like a fucking action movie. It really is. Like how this is like a running battle with everything. However, there's kind of be a thing of, well, sadly, this kind of goes wrong because Nazi's gonna Nazi and they're gonna commit another war crime, which includes, just like the wholesale murder of people.
Yeah.
They got tankers of benzene, which is like a pretty easy thing for people to get, and they started flooding the basement.
That's also known as what in other, like, petrol, right? Gasoline?
Yeah. Gasoline. Well, they just do a different thing. Benzene is a bit easier to set alight.
Okay.
But petrol is like more useful. But whatever, it doesn't matter.
But it's a flammable liquid.
It's a flammable liquid, and it is made from oil. But anyway, they flood the basement and they set a fire, and that's that. At that point, some of the people come out surrendering, some of them on fire, and it is like that's that. Okay.
Beginning of
we
the
can
end.
talk about yes. At this point, the people. This is the people's basement. Yeah, it's at this point when some of the refugees managed to escape. 6 people, and 3 of them survived the entirety of the war, which actually gives us like first-hand accounts of what happened. There is a picture of the aftermath, which has most of the surviving members of the combatants of the Polish side lined up against the wall. And there's a difference between like talking about bad shit and showing it, because I've got to tell you that 10 minutes after this picture was taken, all the people in the picture were shot. So they were just lined up against the wall and dead. There is a picture, there's a very fantastic picture in the post office museum, which like the post office is now a museum, of like this image of them like being held up against the wall and stuff like that against the actual wall itself. It's a really cool exhibit. But anyway, it doesn't matter particularly. Ultimately, there's like loads of people are taken in. An interesting aspect is, even though these people are supposed to be POWs, they are supposed to be civilian POWs, they are not treated as POWs. They are taken to an internment camp that is like a precursor to one of the ones that eventually get one of the concentration camps that get eventually set up. In all, 300 Polish people from Danzig. I keep saying Gdansk for a reason we'll come to later. I'm just keeping it in my mind. But 300 people from Danzig were taken in, and pretty much they were like, just slaughtered, taken, killed, whatever you want. And pretty much this is the point where Danzig ceases to really have like any kind of like place in the war. The war moves on. They are taken with relatively little fight when the Soviets invade in 1945. It's a depot, as I said, it's a port city, so there's also like an ammo depot and things like that. But ultimately, Danzig doesn't matter. In the reparations for the war, however, Second World War, I mean, Danzig was given back to Poland. At which point, they're like the things that constitute its like construction, like how like the demographics, I mean, were changed quite heavily. So now it is actually a very strongly Polish like city. And it's like the thing is going to be. It changed. They changed the name. They took the name of Gdansk and they threw it in the bin. And they very kindly said, "My name is Danzig. My name is Gdansk now." I prefer to be referred to by that. And they were like, okay, we respect this. We respect this new name, and that's kind of that. There is a thing of what's his name? Forster was recognized as being a war criminal in the aftermath for the actions that were taken afterwards. And like the thing that's going to be important to take into account is, why is this like important? Why is it Racist White History Month in Danzig as opposed to anything else? And I kind of think it can be actually a very good case study for how the Nazis can take over, how fascism can take over, and how a very poignant thing that I remember kind of came into being. There were a Polish resistance that was like existing in the mountains of in like the hills of Pomerania throughout the war. Like, even though Poland fell, there was like this tiny resistance of people, and they weren't supported by the Allies at all. They weren't supported by anything, mainly because nobody knew they existed, right? And they like were continuously harrying, and they were only in very small ways harrying. They didn't like, the point is, right? Poland doesn't really get much of a good whack at doing much of anything.
No.
But they also kind of like had this thing of, even though they were nationalists, even though they were like fascists and shit like that, they still fought the Nazis to a proper end. And when they were caught, people were caught and they were tortured and everything like that. They were asked, why do you keep fighting? You can't win. There's no way to win. Poland's lost. And they were just very simply told that that's not how things work. Humans do not stop fighting. And it's kind of this thing of, even though I would love to do the whole thing of like Lord of the Rings yet again, and King Theoden talking at Helm's Deep and sort of talking about how, if this is to be the end of man, it shall be an end remembered forevermore, and other quotes that I can remember offhand. Like, this is like a real example of it. Even though in a group of about 150 people, 6 survived the fight and 3 survived the war, 3 did still survive. Like, there is still like a way. So like, don't like racists, but if they're killing racists, maybe don't pay as much attention to them. And only if they're killing racists, okay, guys? If they're just sitting on Twitter bitching and moaning about how, like, oh, my cancel culture, fuck them. No, take a bugger off.
Yes, when Nazis are at your front door, that's when you find out where you stand on things.
Yeah.
But the point is to not let's not get to the point where the Nazis get to stand on our front steps of our doorstep. Yeah. That is also part of the lesson of this. Is I think it's about resisting fascism at the end of the day. And these anti-fascists weren't perfect. Again, anti-Semitism. However, we can, I think, look at their resistance to fascism and model, take some inspiration from that, but just be anti-racist and anti-fascist.
Yeah. So sadly, I did co-opt the racist White History Month of showing people how bad they are by just talking about Nazis and how things. But I want to there are some questions in the chat that actually.
I like Flint's comment. New Kev is good, but needs more cat.
You can fuck off! I'm my own man. Oh man, this is gonna be so miserable. Kevin already thinking that I am the queen of his chat thinks I'm here to usurp him, like some fucking crazy quiz. Whatever, don't matter. Anyway,
New Kev needs to work on their Brummie accent.
Fuck off.
Very funny.
No, the thing that I would actually like to ask, and this is going to be like a question for the chat, right? And actually for Kristi, when you think of municipal forces, like municipal people who like empty the sewers and pick up trash and do the post and stuff like that, who do you think has the highest fascist kill count?
Oh gosh, in all sort of like municipal government, which categories? Well, I mean, clerks, or as you would say, clerks.
Fox.
Clerks are a very broad category, so I think maybe
Mhm.
just in terms of categorizing job occupations, that might be the most just because of the default. You know, like garbage collectors or street sweepers, traffic wardens, and those kinds of things. Each are, but whereas like I'm gonna go with clerks.
Okay, cool. Is anyone from the chat
Yep.
particularly interested? I'll give them a minute to
Chat,
see
yes,
if
I
they've
have a
got
little
anything.
time. Go ahead and make your bets. What municipal work category? What category of municipal employee?
Yeah,
Globally or just in Danzig?
just in general.
Just in general. Just
Because you'll actually, because this is actually going to be, because we can, because this is going to kind of be to the side. It's not about Danzig, but it's actually pretty.
All right, I
it's
didn't
actually-
know we had global statistics on municipality job category Nazi kills or fascist kills. So
Traffic wardens, the post office. Come on.
Oh, by the
Anybody
way,
else?
sorry, someone like Tommy Robinson fans airing patriotic alternative memberships. I don't support Tommy, but hell, I won't stop them. I just want to say, a trans gamer girl who's no longer in the chat I think it was trans gamer girl, said like tweeted out something from the Times of Tommy Robinson declaring bankruptcy.
Oh yes, yes. We can talk about that really quickly while we're seeing about this.
Okay.
So, Tommy Robinson has announced bankruptcy.
Yes.
Saying that he owes in excess of like £50 million and having like 3 pennies to his name. But he does not want to lose his $70 million pound house he owns. Little known fact, guys: Tommy Robinson is a fucking millionaire.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And now they actually are like using members of like Interpol and shit like that to see if they can find his like Swiss bank accounts where he's like
Nice.
shifted away his shit.
Yeah.
Lollipop ladies, janitors.
You'll have to
Neil
explain.
Magnifico saying himself as having the highest municipal. I guess postmen and everything,
Yeah.
firefighters, mailmen. Okay, so we've got on the cross section.
I think we have to translate lollipop ladies though for those.
Oh, okay. Lollipop ladies are the meter maids.
Lovely Rita, meter maid.
Lovely. No, I just love the no, because there's another thing which is fantastic.
Okay.
So, okay, I would actually say Clark's wins by the sheer default of you being a Weasley bastard, because that is like basically every member of the municipal government is a fucking Clark.
I
So you all
said
do people like it. That's so mean. But no, like specifically the people who have the highest like fash kill count kind
Yes.
of thing or whatever. Shut up, Flint. Fuck off, okay? Fuck off, man.
Borrow a cat.
Borrow a cat. Welcome aboard, Luke.
You know what I can do is I can stick Kitty, and I can just put Kitty next to Lace here, so it looks like you have a cat in the room next to you. There you go. I'll make it. I'll make it a little bit bigger. There you go.
I just want a fucking cat, guys. This is what I'm doing. This grift is all about having a fucking cat.
It's about
I've made my
funding
dreams.
your cat lifestyle. Yeah.
I'm living my best cat. Anyway, just I don't know if that's like mirrored or some shit like that.
Yeah, it
I
works.
don't know.
It works. No, it's perfect.
No, whatever. But anyway, so the guys who have the highest kill counts are Clarks, if you want to be a bitch about it. But
Well, I
also,
did say it was a problem with categorization. It was an artifact created by the category. I did do a critique of the operationalization of the concept.
Anyway, the people who have the highest fash kill count happens to be postman.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Because, like, an obscene number of them, like and I mean this in the sense of like looking at it from the point of view of having read a bunch of different like war things, and being the kind of prick who kind of like figures out, who like looks up records. Sometimes I like look up people who like enlisted and like location and stuff like that, because I find it pretty interesting.
Because you're a nerd.
Stop making the cat so fucking big. It's bigger than me now.
Well, that's what I was there was a request. Make the cat bigger than him from DN Fan. So
Okay. Anyway, the thing that would be is like across the span of it, right?
Mhm.
More people from like the postal service and like people who used to like write letters and shit like that took part in anti-fascist action and actual like siege actions.
Okay, yeah.
So there are so there is during the Winter War, which is a thing that actually precedes the Second World War by a couple of years. It's basically the first run of the first of the and like in that event, literally the most solid, the most recognized, best kill count kind of like unit
Yeah.
was a bunch of postmen and typists and chefs. And the man who legitimately had the highest individual kill count was a postman as well. He killed over 300. He killed over 300 people in the span of about a week, and that's only the ones that we know because the prick doesn't. But he's passed away now, sadly. But he didn't want to talk about it. His name was Simio Hwahwa. He was a Finnish sniper. He was known as the White Death, not because he was white, but because he would disappear into the snow, sometimes for months on end.
Jeez.
And like, yeah, that shit happened. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Post office
Yeah,
people.
that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, post office people. Also, there's a thing of during the Afghanistan, like the Soviet Afghan War, a large number of the Mujahideen, the people who were taught and stuff like that, posed as postmen.
Oh, it's a good cover.
So the people who were like, sadly, they're religious. They're like seen as religious zealots now. But the people who used to fight the Soviets, fight the repulsive forces like that, used to pretend to be postmen in order to get around, and they just turned into postmen because if you're just going to pretend to carry mail around, might as well just carry actual mail.
Yeah, apply for the job.
Yeah. So he was
double dip.
So it's kind of it's a fantastic bit of a like bit of like history to know that there is like when it comes down to it, I just have to go down the road to the Royal Post Office and I'll be safer there than any other place in the city.
That's true, because on the one hand, like, people wouldn't think of the post office, but it is probably a very secured building because it deals with post. And like you said, there's like apparently some kind of people there who have backgrounds in violence, probably. Like statistically.
Statistically, yeah. Like, it's actually a thing. It's actually an interesting thing. Like I'm just going to talk about the post office, right, for a bit, because especially over here, even though they are like a private company, they're recognized by the government. They like a support by the government. They also don't require you to have that strong of a DBS check, which is a database. What's it called?
Background check, right?
Background and disciplinary record.
Okay.
The service. And like it's only if you've committed a really bad crime. So actually, yeah, you do often, like in a weird way, here in Britain, you do actually get a lot of ex-cons who are just postmen, which I find fantastic. I love it. It's a really thing. By the way, thank you very much, Reed. Flint. I appreciate your message. You spiteful little bastard. Okay.
Yeah, by the way, also Flint gave £5 or $5 earlier, and I can't scroll up to find it, but I do appreciate it, and thank you very much also for plugging my channel, the contributions section, which yes, we'll indirectly get to Lace because I've needed an editor. So
so the next so it's like some of the questions that I saw.
Yep.
Like guys, if you guys have any like legit questions that can be on anything, well, here's a question: proper armored car or the Kubelwagens? No, this was a proper armored car. This was like remember, this is like the beginning of the war, so the Kubelwagens only came into existence. This is like fucking stupid minutia shit, but it was an armored car. It was a proper armored car that was like properly like busted to shit by they were developed around this time, but it was like just to be clear, even if it isn't an actual armored car, It's an actual armored car because it's more badass just to imagine that this guy is like running past the 2 machine gun emplacements that they have on this fucking thing to open a hatch and then just slam dunk a bunch of grenades in.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, is it this shot right here we were referencing? This thing, this dinkity dink? Or was this what we were talking about? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That is a what's the thing? The cat is in the way, but I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
That thing where they're hiding behind it. That is an actual armored car. The next thing is, how did the Germany get so far? Legit, loads and loads of very lucky breaks. Like legitimately, you can argue the toss of like how things turned out and if it happened any differently and stuff like that. However, like one of the aspects, one of the category, one of the what's it called, the 14 precepts of fascism or something like that. There is a character of a fascist, which is they are opportunistically lucky. They are very, very opportunistic in it. The fact that Britain and France were not willing to go to war, they were willing to appease the Germans, the Nazi party, I mean. Well, the Germans. Well, no, my head's going in a circle. Sorry. The fact that they were willing to appease them rather than stand firm because they didn't want a war allowed the Germans to get so much further than they should have.
A treaty without enforcement is nothing. So they were willing to, be very hard-nosed and demanding and wanting the humiliation of Germany during Versailles. But then when Germany actually started to push back against it and test the boundaries, I mean, I can make some comparisons to Obama. I mean, not really, but if you want to think of modern comparison to Obama and his red line with Syria, and then Syria crossed the red line, and Obama's like, oh, actually, no, I don't. I'm not willing to commit to the level of force to counter you, to stop you from doing this. Just please don't do it again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they didn't. I think after a long war, they were tired. They didn't want to actually try to enforce the treaty, in which case they shouldn't have negotiated it because it did was humiliate Germany, and it didn't stop the things that they were trying to stop.
Someone's found my fucking Roll20 page.
Yeah,
guys, if you follow that, you're just gonna find nothing, and every now and then I'll just like post a forum thing of like, hey guys, how does black hack work? I don't know how to do this.
We should do a fascist. We should do a fascist one-off. D&D one-off.
Just one-off.
I would do kill the fascist D&D Roll20 one-off. Where we
I'm down for that. I'm down for that as long as I don't have to do any work. I'll just show the fuck up.
I can DM it, and you can like pick your class, and you basically like can find out different ways to take out fascists.
Just clear the whole day.
Clear the dungeon. Clear the post office.
Just like a fucking, just turn into like a crazy murder hobo.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, yes. Well, I mean, if Kristi can take Alice in Wonderland and reskin it for a wonderful D&D experience, we could hey, who wants to kill Fash for an afternoon? All right, one shot. Let's go. How many ways can we kill Fash?
So the next one's going to be. Can we have one for a trial by Wombat? Yeah, you could jump. Oh,
I tried to get Kevin on here for a 3-way, but like I said, he bailed on us, so I'm just joking.
Well, missed out.
That's all right.
So next one is going to be about Pomerania. So Pomeranians, yeah.
Woof woof.
Woof woof are little doggos that were made in the hilly areas of Poland, well, what is now known as Poland, called Pomerania. And it just so happens to be that used to be like the center of the old Polish Empire, in a really stupid way. Like the old Polish Empire, like it's one of those things of the old Polish Empire, like announces, oh yes, we used to own everything from stern to stem of the Asiatic world. Blah, 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 blah. And it was actually more like, imagine the old idea of like Russian Empire, which was not so much an empire as a titanically large thing that was too poor to like break apart. And you get something akin to it, like whatever. But anyway, yes, Pomeranians are called after Pomerania, even though Pomerania is like a much better name for a dog than a country. Okay, for not setting Rory Cats up with a cat cam.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That's-
Flint Reed is just being a salty bitch.
But my kitty cam is basically my version of a Rory cat cam.
So Danzig sings Wrecking Ball. Yes, Wrecking Ball, the new like the original thing. You did little known fact, Miley Cyrus, kind of a plagiarist. She stole it from Danzig, national anthem of the place. These polls aren't sending their best. Did you really say that? That's kind of annoying. Like any other questions, guys?
Yep. Last chance. Tiny anti-fascist doggos. You run a vampire game in Leningrad. That's cool. In 1939.
Oh shit! I love that. Like, are you actually using like the supplementary books and shit like that? Because I love that fucking setting. It's so good. You can like get blown the fuck up and be okay. It's great. Russia broke the Budapest Treaty. Like Russia does its own thing at that point. You know, it was basically a fascist state at that point. Stalin was in charge. Fucking
yeah.
That much.
And genocider and criminal.
Like in general, right? We're gonna like you can talk about the what's his names and like one of the reasons why you can attest to like the Finns fighting the Fash, that stuff, is because like some people sit there and go like, Russia, it is a socialist country. It meets none of the criteria of being a socialist country, and it meets all the criteria of being a fascist state, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Okay. You're not gonna get it.
If I could, so from my experience, you know, living in the States and then living in Britain and then living in Germany, so for people who have grown up native to those lands and haven't like come from anywhere else, I think fascism and the battles of fascism can feel a bit abstract. I guess in Britain it's less so because there was the bombings, right? There was the Battle of London, there were air raids and things, but there wasn't an occupation. Right. America, the white people in America have never felt the sort of police state that they've imposed on others, shall we say.
Yeah.
Right. So for the majority of the population, their experiences with fascism, I think, tend to be a little bit more abstract. And I say that because having, lived in Germany, when you were talking about, let me connect this, when you were talking about the post office and all the events happening there, and people dying on that site in order to try to resist the Nazi takeover. And terrible, like people being lined up against walls and having their picture taken, and then the next minute they're all dead against that same wall.
Yeah.
One of the most disturbing parts of living where fascism took place, I guess, and this is only from my experience, but in Cologne they preserved the building that in the 1930s and 40s was the headquarters for the SS. And that building it used to be like a government building, and then the SS took it over, the Nazis took it over, and it became their prison, it became like their headquarters, and it also became where they did their executions. Yeah. This is within 10 minutes walk of my work. And I went to the Nazis, or the National Socialist Museum, when I first moved here, but my German really wasn't good enough to understand everything. And I was with a friend, and we had a whole lot of things to do, so we kind of like just walked in and then left. Last year, in January, I hosted another friend and went and spent more time in it. This time went down in the basements where they held the cells, and they had the graffiti, that people who were held in that basement prison left on the walls. And then they take you out to this little courtyard, which is just like, if you just think about going into like a government building that has a little courtyard in the back, and it's just in a neighborhood, like it's just in a neighborhood. And that was the location and on which they would hang people. They would just take them from, like 15, 20 feet away from their prison cell, bring them out to the back of this courtyard. And there are houses, like there are apartment buildings.
There are apartment buildings over the
right around there, right? And the Nazis would try to put up some screens, to try to like keep it private. They weren't doing public executions. They weren't trying to bring attention to all the crimes they were committing. But yeah, you could literally just like, if you lived in the building next to that courtyard and you saw the things going up, or if you had a specific view in, you could just watch people being executed. and then it was just all got taken away and like covered up, and so there's nothing, like it never happened. What they've done to memorialize that location is that they've set up mirror panes along the whole area, so that wherever you go, you're kind of looking at yourself. And I think it's meant to be like a reflection on what happened in this space. But it's so mundane. It's so ordinary. Horrific things happen there. Horrific things happen there. And yet when you walk through it, it's just like it's haunted, but it's just like, for me, like the cognitive dissonance of when I went to visit on a wonderful spring day where it's the 21st century and people are just going about their lives, and realizing in the 1930s and 40s, that's exactly what was happening while people were being executed, where I'm standing. And corpses were being piled up and stuff, and waiting to be just, moved on or cremated. And so the nearness of that, I think is, like, that experience was for me very different from the abstraction of history and removed from time and geography.
So there's something that is very, like, I'm not very, like, to talk about it in these ways, I'm not really proud of it in realization sense. Like, when I went to America very recently, I went to Georgia specifically, so there with a friend. And I was kind of like really taken aback by the very stark differences in kind of like the parasitic sector. It's very, very strange. Let's put it that way. Like the thing of kind of going there, and it's just kind of like there was like a plaque which was for like some kind of like racist event from a church, I believe that was like. Other than that, there wasn't the kind of recognition of previous racist action I had seen elsewhere, which kind of like really, really, really surprised me. It really kind of like put me aback. A thing that is really interesting, and like I perfectly like, guys, like, if you're ever interested, Google it. There's a thing which is called Auschwitz syndrome, which is specific. It's like a thing that happens specifically when people go to like places of, I guess you could say, like massive. The point is, it's supposed to be like a place that's like very, very bad, and it basically is described of people basically having like miniaturized emotional breakdowns because of the sheer weight of the knowledge that they're having. And now you can very easily like describe it as whatever, but there have been like literal events of people having to go and get therapy because like Americans, or like this isn't just saying it's just for America, like loads of people otherwise, but it's like people who aren't aware of something becoming so aware of something being present.
It finally clicks.
It
right?
kind of clicks for them. And I remember like the one that's really big for it. I've never been. I really want to go. I really want to go. I've never been to Gdansk. I've never been to Danzig. I really want to go there, like see this kind of. But one of the things that I want to see is the Auschwitz Memorial, because the Auschwitz Memorial Museum, like, does do this very thing, and they're like well known. They actually have like specialists on site to take care of people. Sometimes they like break down, and it's kind of like being aware of human suffering is like a thing that I think is not important in the very patriarchal sense of you must suffer in order to be happy. It's important to know that that we should fight against these. If I didn't know, for instance, about the Halabja massacre, which is another massacre, we don't have to talk. But it is just like a straight up massacre that America and Britain are directly connected. Like, they are directly culpable. I would probably still believe that Saddam Hussein is a good person. Like, if people didn't know about Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib and stuff like that, it will be a much harder sell to talk about the imperialism inherent in America. The sad thing is, though, is that you've got the Auschwitz like fucking with you, because it becomes too much. which is like another reason that I'll like link it all together and be like, this is why Danzig is important. Because every now and then you've just got to be okay with people dying and everybody fucking dies and it's something like that. And you've just got to be okay with the fact that it's a fucking Nazi dying this time. It's good. Like, fuck them. I'm not particularly sad about, oh yeah,
26
the
Nazis
howitzer
were-
exploded and like shrapnel tore a man in two. Oh, well, you know, he probably like beat his wife before he came here. Fuck him.
Yeah, I think when it comes to so tragedy before Hollywood was a staple in the arts. I mean, especially in the performative arts, right? Because tragedy was something that people like generally experienced, because we suffer, like our lives are full of suffering. But kind of like when Hollywood seemed to, and again, I don't know the entire history of the thing, but they wanted to sell you products, not reflect life back at you. And that's what theater initially was for, right? So we moved away from tragedy. We really moved away from not only tragedy being the ending of a story, but also because we were force-fed a series of happy forever, living happily ever after movies. We didn't have a sort of cultural way to process tragedy. There always had to be hope, and sometimes like there isn't. Sometimes the lesson is people stand up for what they believe in and they die, and that's the story. And so I think currently like Charlie Brooker is really only the person who consistently will. You can go, look, I'm like, when I come out of a Charlie Brooker Black Mirror episode, I'm probably not going to feel hopeful. But that also feels in some ways like some relief. So getting back to this topic, when it comes to these stories, processing that tragedy, and like I said, with the Auschwitz thing, if someone hears something and it's very abstracted, and then they go, and I've heard at Auschwitz, for instance, like they have glasses from all of the people who came through the camps and they have them laid out, or they have shoes, right? Or they have their suitcases, and you start to see each suitcase maybe represents one or two people, and then you're standing in a room and you know that this is a drop in the bucket, and then you think of all the fear and the terror and the anxiety and praying to God that everything's going to be okay, and having all of that actually become real to you in a moment is incredibly important, and I think almost morally necessary. But also, if you haven't had we in modern world just don't, especially in the West, don't generally deal with tragedy as much as previous generations have. We're emotionally unpracticed at kind of dealing with those emotions because we don't have entertainment to kind of practice with the way we do with some other things. So anyway, that was just me ranting, kind of riffing.
No. That's a fantastic. What, talking about it now. A couple of questions come up from the chat.
Yeah.
Haruka asks, can you talk about the Wilhelm Gustloff sometime? It is used as far-right propaganda. So just a quick thing. Wilhelm Gustloff, it is a rescue boat that was sunk by the Soviets. And you
should come back on and talk about it.
I would love to, except it's kind of like there is no... It's kind of the thing of like, Danzig is special. It's sad, but it's also fucking cool because you get these like the mental image of like postmen doing shit. There is no happy ending for the Wilhelm. It just isn't. I'll gladly come on and talk about it, but hard like content warnings advised.
Okay.
Like hardcore.
Yeah. But I also think that too again has its place. Like had I not gone and spent time looking at the prison cells, reading the words and the translation of what the prisoners had said, and standing in the courtyards where they died, again, the impact of that is different. And so, I think tragedy is something that we need to reintroduce into our culture just so we're more familiar with it. Otherwise, we live in a state of denial. So I don't have any problems with, putting tragic stories on, or just stories that don't have happy endings.
Okay, I'm jiggy with that. The next thing is
from
I'm jiggy with it. No, sorry. The Lucky Wanderer asking, were the actual posties anti-Semites, or was it the city of Danzig more broadly that banned Jews from the... Now we kind of get into the difficulties and, if you could say, problems inherent with like studying any of this stuff. Or studying is a bad word. Like looking stuff up. Like I'm not looking up fucking. You guys know what I mean. I hope I didn't say anything.
No, you're
Anyway,
fine.
okay, so um, so these people who lived in Danzig were almost innately, just by dint of the world that they were in, are anti-Semitic. Like they just lived at a time where it was okay to be that, and it's wrong because there weren't anti-Semites. There were artists. There were nice
Anti-Semites.
anti-Semites. There were
Yes,
there were the people who didn't. There were the people who didn't like that. There were the people
Yeah.
who were okay with Semites, with people from the Semitic nation. They're like, it just so happened that it was an accepted part of life. Really, really, a thing that like always sticks in me is a film that Clint Eastwood did called Gran Torino. I don't know if you guys
Yes, recall that because
And
I'm old.
one of the things that was like a passing line is a casually anti-Semitic line, where somebody just says, like, don't. Basically, they mean don't con me, don't like pull a fast one on me, and they replace con with Jew.
Yep.
Right, and it's kind of like that is just such a casual piece, and it's not inherently anti-Semitic in the sense of there is no force to it, but the language and the culture is such that that's fucking you get it.
Yeah.
So it's really so the ultimate point of it as being like, why is it so difficult? It is so difficult to say whether or not they were anti-Semitic is the specific choice probably helped the people who were in the post office because it made them less of a target. Simultaneously, Jewish people were probably already leaving the city. They had the money to leave. If they had the money to leave the city, that kind of thing. This isn't saying that it was okay that they did this.
It's the reality of the times, though.
It's just the reality of the times. But the ultimate point is, it is really fucking difficult to know whether or not it was just straight up racism or if Danzig more broadly banned the Jews. They were under censure for specific things. So, like, they kind of had to do the whole like star thing. You must
right. Yeah,
ride a bicycle. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like that's later on, of course, but like it's just kind of like those things existed in the time, and it's just really fucking hard to know. And it's like just this choice that they made, like it's just the choice that they made, and I will fight it. I will like really repudiate the idea that it was like a good plan. It just is the thing that they did.
One of the things that really is sinking in more to me during the Racist White People History Month or whatever it is, I can't remember the name of my own segment, but all right. On the one hand, I am better understanding this idea that yes, in the early, let's say, 1920s and 1930s. If you were born into an era where you were becoming an adult in the 1920s and the 1930s, you probably had no other option than to be raised in a segregated, racist, apartheid society. Like it was literally all around you in the media, in the laws, in the KKK organizing, all these things. And that isn't that different to the way that people had thought for centuries before that, like since the sort of invention, the creation of racial politics that white people did in order to sustain slavery and in some ways justify it. And so thinking about like the 1945, like or 1940s Human Rights Convention, and to getting a lot of people in a population to use individual rights and equality and not racism as a basis of their political values and the way they want to organize their society. This is so unique and so bizarre to what has always existed. Like the Romans wouldn't understand it. The Greeks wouldn't understand our society. People in the 1920s probably couldn't handle because it would be such a mind fuck for them seeing black people delivering the news, black people being elected to office, a transgender like the way that we're actually enacting, or not we are enacting, but some people actually believe in and want to enact that kind of society, it's probably it's just such a mental break from the racism that white people grew up in, believed in, and reproduced, and never really had a chance to be challenged until it was the integration of the military forces in the 1940s. And it stopped being a they thing, and you had soldiers of equal rank who were white and black and worked with each other, and that, I mean, that might have been the greatest social progress that there could be. I mean, there was still the racism when they came back, but they were entitled to GI benefits. More black veterans went to college. More black families had access to homes, which, okay, then other things happened. But it really did start to undermine the things that had kept societies structured for literally centuries beforehand. Any thoughts on that?
There's really nothing more I can particularly add. Because like the ultimate thing that comes into it is that you're talking about like your perspective on your culture.
Yeah, and this was very much an American, right? Like, I don't know what happened in Europe.
But it's also kind of like, there's the bits where you've got to shut up and listen, and like, don't listen to just the white people, but listen when somebody's talking about their perspective, their culture, their country's like racial.
Oh, if white people could just learn to shut up and listen, show up, shut up, and listen up. Just try that for like a century. Let's just all commit to doing that for a century and see what happens.
So the next thing would be, the next thing would be is like talking about the Wilhelm Gustloff. I mean, I would like, because people are like pushing it.
Okay, yeah.
But the thing is going to be, like, I will gladly speak about it. It's not, however, like I cannot stress how miserable this is. Like, there are things that happened in the Second World War which are legitimately like, these are the things that, like, if you were a human, if like nations were people, they would hide them in like little holes, never talk to them. There's stuff like, there's the Wilhelm, there's the Gustav, there is Unit 741, which was the Japanese like biological weapons unit. There's Holocaust, obviously we know about that. There's the what's it called? Card Casca. I remember one of the people in the room, they said that they were Hungarian.
Oh, okay.
Kastarska. Kastarska. It was a Hungarian work camp that, like, a magnificent destruction, magnificent loss of life. Einsatzgruppen, which is another one. Like, these are miserable things. And yes, talking about the bad things of fascism is a good thing. You get to learn and stuff like that. Like, but I'll try with fucking name again, Gustav. I'll try with the Gustav first, because honestly, like, this stuff can.
Oh yes, yeah, yes.
It's a real thing. It is a like what's his name? Auschwitz syndrome is a real thing. It's like a real like physical. Is a real like psychological. Unit 731. Okay, Unit 730. Just a quick potted history. Okay, I don't want to talk about the things of it. Unit 731 was an attempt to create biological weapons, which was basically like creating the worst version of the bubonic plague in 1937 with no actual like testing apparatus or anything. So they committed crimes unlike you can ever imagine in order to create this thing. And the end result of that is this happened in China, just to be clear. Like, this happened in the area of Manchuria, which is central Han. And it resulted in seasonal bubonic plague outbreaks that killed over 500,000 people for the next 7 decades. Like it to a certain degree, they're still dealing with it. Like it, it's really bad. Okay. Um, yeah. What else? Like talking about like another thing which can be like a fun bit of a fun bit of like bash fighting kind of thing is we can talk about the Dutch Girl Scouts units of the Second World of I believe the the late 1800s. Like this was when the fascist unions and stuff like that were going around. So just a bunch of Girl Scouts decided to become like bicycle riding like Antifa super soldiers who have a kill count into the thousands. It's some of the most fantastic. It's crazy. It's really crazy, but it's fucking cool.
Okay, you have to tell us. You have to come back and tell us about that then.
I'll tell you about
That's
that.
a moral imperative. I want to hear about killer Girl Scouts. Nazi smashing Girl Scouts.
Katsumi, stop it.
Fascist.
All right, no, Katsumi, no. Oh no. No, we'll talk like the next one I'll prepare because it takes time to prepare that. Yeah, I'll prepare for like the good stuff and see how that. Like something that I would really appreciate is actually getting like I don't want to be taking up your Sunday stream, basically.
Yeah, that's fine. No,
like,
I struggle for content every week, so like you can come on like twice a month if you want. That's fine. Depends on how long it takes you to prep something and when you have time yourself. So you've got an open invitation there to come on the show.
Okay.
But people were very happy. They're like very positive. So, and it's less for me to prepare, if I'm honest. It's like I have to like do 3 hours. I don't have to, but I choose to do 3 happy hours a week. Plus, like I have to come up with my own content. So sometimes, like I'm running out of things to be smart about. So,
yep.
Good to let someone else come on and be smart. It's nice for me.
Yeah. Something else that I would really think that like there was a question here. I think.
Yeah.
Was the idea of I'm sorry, could you just fill time? I'm trying to find
Yeah. So, come back, I guess Monday night, we've got the happy hour back on Kevin's channel, which means I have to do homework for Racist White History Month because we took Friday off because we'd done a double episode on Wednesday and we did the Sunday show, this one here. So, go over to Kevin's channel for the next episode of the happy hour. And, that's how I fill time while I cleaned my glasses. I was multitasking.
Okay. So this is actually a question, and it's going to be specifically like the reason I wanted to bring it up was because it's because the basically talking about the Wilhelm Gustloff like event thing, the circumstance. Okay. Just to be clear, right? It killed a lot of people. Like this particular thing, it was like a rescue boat. It saved it like protected a bunch of people trying to get them out of Nazi Germany. And basically a Soviet submarine like killed them all. It was like 9,000 dead. And it is a far right talking point that is increasingly being used now as kind of like, well, war crimes was done on both sides. It's like the bombing of Dresden, like as a thing. So as a thing of what is like the thing to say about this is first off, whether or not the Soviet submarine knew that it was a rescue boat is contested. That's the first thing, right? People will continue to talk about it and they'll say, "Oh, you're quibbling," and anything like that. The second thing to keep in mind about the Gustav is even though people did die and it was really bad, the Soviets owned up to it. Okay, the Nazis didn't. Like they announced that this has happened. Okay, another thing that kind of like comes up. Oh, well, actually, saying that that's like that. It like the by rights. I don't actually know the specifics of it. I just know. I just know that they happen to have apologized. So I don't know if they properly did it at the time. Another thing to kind of like keep in mind is when people talk about who are the real war crimes. Like Haruka, I'm not going to say you're doing it wrong by saying one thing or another. Overwhelmingly, that conversation is either really useless to have because you're talking to somebody who has formulated the idea of, well, the idea of war crimes done by either side basically makes the concept of holding people useless. So, like, changing tact at that point, like the best move. But also, next thing would be, yeah, the next thing would be about. Do you know of the Edelweiss pirates? Yes. Fuck yeah, the Edelweiss. Yes. No, sorry.
Edelweiss Piraten. Yeah, there's actually a memorial in Ehrenfeld, which is one like Viertel or quarter over from me, where they have a memorial to the Edelweiss Piraten who were executed, I think, on that spot. So
yeah. The next thing to kind of like put to the subject is like, first off, move away from the subject of like war crimes, because actually it just kind of comes down to quibbling over the ins and outs of like which war crime is worse, and little things. Talking to these crazy bastards. Like Katsumi is talking a little bit about the idea of intentionality. On a legal sense, intentionality doesn't matter when it comes to war crimes. War crimes are war crimes. But on a talking discourse way, talking to people, yeah, like intentionality matters a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think intentionality can be measured by the types of institutions, structures, and processes that a group puts in order to carry out something that ends up becoming a war crime, and then if they try to cover it up and to what extent and all kind of thing. Yeah, and I think in that way you can say, yes, here is a war crime that has a small amount of, like, here is the, we always say, like, it's basically like it's like black sites. You know, there's the kind of covert war crimes, and then there's like, we don't give a fuck who knows war crimes. Like, we're just gonna do what we're gonna do, and we're not gonna we're gonna be as bad, but we're just not gonna try to cover up or you know. So.
There's a fantastic line from Rory Katz, and that this is like the last thing. At this point, I'm just arguing with the chat at this point. The Japanese also forced anime and cutesy culture on the Chinese. The Chinese are still recovering, and I'm just like, dude, we were talking about 731. When you find out about 731, you're not going to be happy with this line. Like, legit, don't turn back, dude. Turn back. Bad move. But yeah, Rory Katz is a sociopath. He's fine.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, anyway.
And if you wanted to do something on the Edelweiss Piraten, you know, I can do some local reconnaissance and research.
I'm down with it
because
like, honestly, it would be very useful, because like most of my stuff is first-hand sources, but first-hand sources through the second-hand source of something I found on the internet. So if you can actually like give a bit of information.
Yeah, we'll talk about that then. Going on. Well, yes, we've been going for 2.5 hours.
2 hours. Yes, and I know that it's like well over an hour and a half after what you wanted. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I mean, people in the chat really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it as well. And yeah, I think it was exceptionally interesting, well presented, and you've got a few more follows, I think, on your Twitch channel. So
Thank
excellent. You. Yeah, so I definitely want to have you back, Lace, La. We'll call you La. LA.
La.
Okay. Yeah, so people come back next week. I don't know what's going to be here for next Saturday, but thank you to Laceco. I did post links as well to his Twitch, and I realized I wasn't following you on Twitter. I suck at following people, so I've sorted that out now. I've followed you back. Apologies for being derelict in my follow back duties. And yeah, people were saying, well done, let's do this on the regular. Apparently they just they want me to be I do post better.
They're just like, this is just going to turn into like a really toxic relationship of just people obscenely hurling like the horrible war crimes of humanity on me.
Yeah, do
I can
this
just see this
war
happening.
Crime. Yes.
We've already got the comfort women.
Yep. So your Sunday morning depression will be
Sunday morning misery. More like, fucking hell. Yes. Guys, be nice.
And you might have to get some sort of stuffed cat to put in the background next to. Is that a electric toothbrush I see plugged in?
Yeah. It's right next to my hair styler.
Nice.
A set of paintbrushes that I got on the cheap, and like I used to work in China. I used to work as a teacher in China, so I used to work with a lot of kids who had like behavioral issues and stuff like that. So the kids' parents kept giving me gifts as a kind of like thank you very.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like it was actually really funny. The person who gave me the fan, like
Mhm.
bought me the fan thing. Where is the other one? There's another one which is I haven't set it up. Set it up. Okay, there was a like the fan thing. It was by a dad who kind of like told me a bit hush hush that it was okay if I had to discipline his kid by beating him, and I was like, I don't do that. And he just suddenly went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Then he fucked up and he got me that as like a sorry gift, and I just love it. I've been wanting to put it on the wall for ages, but I can't be bothered. Fuck it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, someone was saying, oh yeah, A to Decay said, I bookmarked this because I definitely want to listen to it again.
There you go.
So I think I should take that as a massive compliment. All right, yes, so come back. Clearly, this worked out well. So we're going to have you on, every couple weeks to vary from me just nattering at the chat for an hour or hour and a half a day. Okay, so links for Lisa's Twitter and Twitch are in the chat. I'll also, if I remember, put links in the description box because I have to edit that anyway. Anything else that you want to say before we head out?
Fuck Sash.
All right. Okay, and then I guess until the next time I host you, and for people in the chat next time till I'm on the happy hour, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Lath. Do you want it Lath or Lace? How do you want to go out?
I haven't got a coin here.
Blah.
Blah.
Not blah. Just
Blah.
Dave, Lath.
Dave, that person, that thing that you say in the happy hour, every time you kind of like say Dave, you're talking about me.
So goodbye from me and goodbye from Dave. Say say goodbye, Lath.
Okay, goodbye, Lath.
I'll give you your real name. All right, yeah, okay. He did the bit too. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you very much
yeah.
for that, Kristi.